All right, so let's go ahead with your demo session. So, this demo session, we're going to talk about payroll, PCR, and schema. It's just a demo, and we're going to see what all topic we're going to cover with our regular session. So, now, so the first thing it is like, your payroll is different from your SAP PCR and schema. So whenever we start with the training for PCR and schema, we always advise to people that their basic should be good in terms like, for example, when you starting with your payroll PCR and schema. So your basic configuration for your payroll should be good. Like for example, earnings deduction, how taxes are coming, how your statutory deductions are coming, right?
No, I
Because
no, I'm
once
not so no, I'm not so good in those. Honestly
then
speaking,
Paramita, you will have
in
to
the
learn
pair.
the payroll then first.
Okay.
All right, because PCR and schema will not cover the basic configuration for payroll.
Huh, I can understand. Basic configuration, I'm aware, but as you say
No,
that regarding
basic
the
I mean
tax,
to say, yeah,
yeah,
basic mean to say like the whole complete payroll, not
yeah,
just
the
the
tax and the deductions,
uh,
as you were saying.
taxes deduction,
No, I didn't work on
statutory
those.
deduction.
No.
Right. So, so the first thing it is like, when you start with your PCR schema and training for payroll, your payroll should be, you should have an idea how to do the configuration for payroll, how you should go ahead and do your, like wage type configuration, earnings deduction, taxes, statutory deductions, and then your income tax also. Now there are so many things into your, especially when it comes to India payroll. Like for example, here you can see there is a fixed, the basic remuneration which is coming here. Like you have a basic salary, then you also have a bonus. Like each of these, like which is donated with a wage type. Wage type is nothing; it's just a salary component, and salary component is donated by amount or by number or unit, right? So when you have a number or unit, then it automatically gets multiplied with your rate, and then it gives you the amount. So that is how all these calculations happen. Then you can see, achha, whenever you have a particular info type, and you can see it is showing up here as a PNNN, this is nothing, it's just an info type number.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So whenever you have this, before your info type, whenever you, have this P, it means you're talking, so this becomes a function.
Correct.
All right. So like this, you will have to understand. Then you can see there is a recurring payment and deduction. Recurring payment and deduction, it is nothing. It's just that payment which is not given every month. So that is a recurring payment and deduction. All right. Like basic pay, which is something which is given every month. If you're running a monthly salary, if you're running a bi-monthly salary, so whatever the salary component it is, like it should appear into every payroll run. So that is known as a like basic detail. But recurring is something like it is appearing for some month and it's not going to appear for some month. So that is known as a recurring payment and deduction. So when you take the requirement from your client, you have to understand which wage type it should come into your input type 8, which wage type it should come into your recurring payment and deduction, and which wage type it should come into your basic pay. So
Got it.
this is a very basic detail, like when you start doing the configuration. Now here you can also see that your time is also there. Now time configuration is also play a lot of important role when it comes to payroll, because here you have to, if employee goes on leave, in that case, do you want the salary deduction or you do not want the salary deduction? How those detail you have to manage it, or if there is a Saturday, Sunday coming, how do you want those days to behave? You want salary deduction, you don't want salary deduction, or if there is a public holiday, how do you want those days to behave, right? So all these detail it comes from a time management. So time management, you have to link to your, payroll, and that is where the time data it shows into your payroll. Now, the major difference between time and your payroll it is in payroll you will find a wage type where you store your amount, and in time management you'll find a time type where you store number of hours. So that is what the major difference between time and payroll it is. Then here also you can see like you have an input type which is 2010, which is employee remuneration information. Now, in case if something you have to calculate pay to an employee in time, so in that case you can use this input type. So these are the configuration basically you have to do, and then you can generate your you can do your payroll run and you can run the payroll. Now it is just only a few basic information. However, there is a lot of thing which goes in the background of doing the configuration before you actually run the time evaluation or whether you run the payroll, right? So,
Right.
so all those detail which is there, and especially when you talk about the payroll, there is also a posting which is there, which happens to the finance once your payroll letter is done. So that part also, which is very important.
Mm.
Now, in this slide, you can see there is your schema, and schema, whether you run the time evaluation or whether you run the payroll. So for both, there is a schema, and that schema you have to use. We never use the standard schema because in case if the custom schema something goes wrong, we always refer to the standard schema. So that is the reason we always copy the schema, and then we make it a client specific, and in that client specific schema we make the changes as per the client requirement. So schema will contain your function. So here you can see function.
Mm.
Now, there are certain functions that we're going to see in the slide, but more in detail about the function, that's something we're going to see into your with a regular session. So you'll find there is a regular session, and especially if you talk about the payroll schema. So in payroll schema, you'll also have a sub schema, and sub schema has a operation. All right, like
Right.
OUTWP. So that is one of the operation. VRST, that is uh, you know
ADTWT.
right, that is another operation. So all these operations we're going to see with the regular session, and what is the purpose of all these details we're going to see, right? So here you can see all these function, which is, so as I said, in payroll you'll find main schema, and then you'll find the sub schema, and
Correct.
then in sub schema you will find your PCR and PCR, and PCR contains your operation. Operation is nothing, it's just your calculated formula which has been designed for your how it should calculate, right? Which is as per your client requirement. Now, since we're talking about the India payroll, so here in your India payroll, you can see these are some of the sub schema. Acha, how you understand that it is sub schema? The basic thing you understand in your sub schema it is when before your schema there is a copy function. So in your system, when we're going to start with the configuration, so we'll see that before all these sub-schema, you'll find the copy, and in your copy you will find that all these are the sub-schema. So what is a main schema? Main schema for India it is IN double zero. All right,
Mm.
like for example, in US it is U triple zero. So India it is IN double zero. So similarly, every country they have their own schema and sub-schema. Why every
Okay.
country they have their own schema and sub-schema? Because each country they have their own taxes and their statutory deductions, right? So their formula to calculate, in each country it is different. However, time is the only one where you'll find schema. It is common for all the countries. Like for example, here you can see INN0, which is for initialization of a payroll. Then you can see XBD0, it is for edit basic data. So from here it's like all your basic data it reads. Then you can see XLR0, it is like you're importing your last payroll result. You have
Mm.
XT00, you have so this is the schema which is actually integrating with your time management. Then here
Mm.
you can see XAP9, which is like import of your additional payment and deduction. XAL9, which is actually very important. Like this is a
Mm.
factoring and storing, right? So
Mm.
this schema and your time it's sub schema, it is actually very important because majority of a thing we actually make changes into your, if it is something with the time related, we do that into your XT00, or if something with the payroll related, then we do that into your XAL9. However, other sub schema is also important, but majorly we work on these two only.
I
Then you
have
can
one
see,
small query. Here,
Hmm.
like partial period factoring and the storage. So, can you give an example, when these partial period factoring comes into play, that when an employee is going to get hired to an organization in the middle of the month or something like that? In that case,
Yeah, it's when employee joins in the middle of a month, or maybe let's suppose for 30 days, you are paying to an employee 30,000. So if employee is on 1 day leave, so how much you
hmm,
going to pay for 29 days?
correct,
All right, so
correct,
that is known as a factoring and storing. All
correct.
right, so for that also, there is a subschema, and in that subschema, you'll find there is a PCR, and all these PCR, it does all these calculations. So with the
Okay,
regular session, we're going to see all these PCR and subschema and how those PCR, it's calculating what is operation they have given. So how we can write all these PCR, right? So like this, you will see all these details. Then you can see XRR0, which is retroactive. So retroactive is nothing, it's just your past calculation, which you have missed. And then you want to pay in the current month. So that is known as a retro. So, so there are certain subschema which, SAP has already created. But in case if your client require as per their requirement, in that case then you'll have to come and make those modifications. So this is what we actually going to learn into your payroll PCR and schema. Then you can see XCND, which is nothing, it's just a final processing where you'll find all the RT table and everything. So these are some of the sub schema you can see here. So here you can see main schema and the sub schema. So main schema, it is nothing, it's just we just discussed about the India one, which is IN 00. And here you can see these are the functions like com, copy, right? So next to your com function, wherever you'll find, it is always a subschema. So here you can see
copy,
next to
under copy. Yeah,
next to the
next.
copy.
What
Next
about
to the com is
com
just a comment.
command?
Comment means it's just a line, nothing else.
Okay,
All right. So here you can see this is your copy which is coming, and inside your copy you will see all these sections. The next to the copy it will always be the subschema. So what is the meaning of a subschema? If you double click on this, it will also open.
hmm.
So here you can see like XBD0, they have opened this, which is like edit basic data. So this is also open. And each of the subschema, it will always start with block begin and block end. So this is the starting and this is ending. And in between, they will have function and the formula.
Okay,
So like this, you can see all these details. And this is like just a comment. So comment means it is telling you, Acha, X stands for international. So like,
okay.
so wherever you see this X, it is for international. Wherever you will find IN, like in this one, Acha, this is also X. This is also international. So wherever you find the
This
IN,
is not the copy. This is not the copy. X.
this is not a copy. This is US payroll schema. So wherever you'll find IN, that is for India payroll. And so like this, so acha, this is also international. This is not also not India, neither US. US comes with the U.
Then X.
Like,
Then what is this? XI.
so
Then
this
what?
is X stands for international. Like, for
Okay,
example,
okay.
instead of X here, if they mention it as a UINO, so that will be the US. Now here XBD0, if it is mentioned as a UBD0, it is US. If it is India,
What about UK?
INDV. They have their own detail. That's something we'll discuss it. Don't worry. I'll give you all the detail that how the main schema and everything it looks like. So from there you can figure it out. Then you have your see each of your whether it is schema or whether it is piece and schema, you have to create your what is the source text and what is the attribute. So in the source text, you have to mention that if it is for any specific country, or if it is like whether it is for payroll or whether it is for time management, and who can make the changes. Only changes can be done by a particular schema and PCR, only the person who has created it, or it can be if you don't select anything, or it can be done by anybody. So these are the few attributes which you have to assign it. Once you assign these attributes, in that case, you will come into the main schema, and from there you can see you can see all these. Achha, schema contains 8 columns. So here you can see this is a first column which is coming here, which is nothing, it's just a number. Then there'll be function. Then you have a parameter one. So these are four. So parameter one, parameter two, parameter three, parameter four. So we'll see that with a regular session. What is parameter one, parameter two, parameter three, and parameter four? D, it is for activation and deactivation. So, what is deactivation? Deactivation means like when you're running something and you do not want a particular line to get to read by the system. So, in that case, what you do, you just deactivate it. And then you can see there is a text. Text is also very important because with the text help only you understand what this PCR is actually talking about. So, like this, you will see all these detail and so you will see your all these detail and your all these section it will come. And so here you can see like you have a schema, like there is a standard schema and then there is a customer schema. Customer schema is nothing, it's just a copy schema of your main schema, right? So what is the purpose of copy schema? The purpose of a copy schema is you modify as per your requirement. So here also you will just go ahead and modify as per the requirement, right? So and why we don't make changes to the standard schema? We don't make changes to the standard schema so that in case if something goes wrong with the copy schema, so at least we have the standard schema, so we can always copy from the standard schema and then make, again we can reuse it. But in case if suppose you have make changes to the standard schema only, and in case something has gone wrong, so how are we going to use it, right? So that is what the basic difference you will find into your main schema and the customer specific schema. Now here you can see all these details. So here again you can see like your function and PCI calculation. So you can see this copy it is coming, and with this copy it is subschema. Again, if you open this subschema, it is showing you as a import of a last payroll result, right? And each of the subschema, I told you that it will always start at the block end and the block beginning and the block end, which means this is a beginning and this is ending, and inside that you will write your all these formula, and your PCR will contain all these formula here. So you can see like you have your X006, right? So if you open up this PCR, it will have all these formula, and basically it will have operation. How do you want to do the operation, and then how do you want to go ahead? Now this is another slide where you can see like you have a subschema, which is your XBD0 and XBD0 also you can see it is starting with a block beginning and the block end, right? So as I told you that each is sub schema, it will always start with the block beginning and the block end, and that's where if you have to modify something, so you have to modify in between those block beginning and block end, whatever the formula or whatever detail you want to write, right? So there only you have to make all these changes. Now, when you talk about your basic data, so basic data also has a WPBP split. Do you have any idea what is WPBP split?
Oh, W. Can you please explain once? I remember it's
WPBP, it is nothing. It's just a split which has happened in the month. Like, for example, if employee has been transferred to a different location, or if employee his salary has increased, which happens in the middle of a month, so that is where the WPBP split it comes. With the WPBP split, especially it is important on payroll because for before a particular date, when the split was not there, employee was getting a different salary. After that, the split,
correct.
employee is getting a different salary. So
Correct.
those detail has to be captured. Not only the base, your salary, but also it is like, in your, it will also show into your info type 4040 where you have a personal action. So that split, if it is happening there also, it will count. Time management split also, it is very important, right? So it will show you all those time detail. Like for example, here you can see in this one, like you have your like employee salary, which is like 3,000. Here you can see 3,500, and here also you can see 3,500. So
Hmm.
like this, you will see all these split, and after this split, you will see like modifier for table access. Like you can see you are modifying your personal area wise, like a particular location, people will be getting this wage type and this much of salary. people at a different location, they will be getting this much of wage type and this much of salary. Like for example, here you can see person area 1000, they're segregated as a 01. And here you can see they're getting 9 and 20 rupees. And here in the payroll, you can see they have segregated this with a 02 and they're getting 15 and 22,
What is the
right? For this,
segregation about?
the
Zero, one, and
segregation 01, it is like employee subgroup grouping,
yeah, yeah,
which you
that's what I
do.
was thinking. Okay.
So those segregation you will have to do it in case if they're getting as a common and general, so you can keep it as a common and general for all. But basically, if there is a split, so in that case, you will have to go ahead with all these split. And now here, this is one of the PCR which you can see, which is coming here as a X mod. Now X mod is actually very important PCR where you will see now this is the same one here. You can see with the plant wise they have segregated. So you will have to write this PCR. You can see like when model like OUTWP and then it is reading the personal area. So personal area when it is 01 or personal area when it is 02. So you have a different amount. So here also you can see personal area when it is 01 or when it is 02. So for that, you will have to write all these formula. And here also you can see personal area, which is 1000 and personal area, which is 1100. So same thing here also it is personal area 1000 and personal area. So this is just one of the example. There are various ways through which you can write your PCR
One
and you
second,
can,
I have, sorry for the interruption. Like here it is written now, modif A is equal to 1, modif 1 equal to
Mhm.
0, 1. So, honestly speaking, these I don't understand. I don't understand that how the consultants do write, this,
that
and
is
how.
what
Okay,
that is what you're getting the training. If you understand
okay,
then why you will need a training. So
got
that
it.
is what we're going to discuss in your regular session, that what is this, which table you should maintain, how you should look for help in case if there is an error coming, how you should resolve that error.
Correct,
So all those details we're going to see with the regular session. And
correct.
in case if you're making these changes here, then why you're making these changes from here, how it will help, where is going to pick the rest of the data. So all those details we're going to see. Now here you can see this is another example of a like time waste type dependent, like some data which is coming from the time. So here you can see like they're paying as a 20 rupees and 22. And then here you can see S means plan working time, N means overtime, which means here the employee has done 2 hours of overtime and 9 hours of a plan working time. So here you can see plan working time, it is showing into the table, which is DZL, and overtime it is showing into ZML, right? So like this, you can figure it out. See, when you're seeing for the first time, the table also, it looks very alien. But when you start understanding, when you're trained on this, then you start understanding how all these calculations work. So
Hmm.
all these with calculation, it works. And then you can see your time waste type selection. So you will have your time pair, you'll have a condition for the day, like weekdays, weekend, public holiday condition on time, what time interval limit, and so all those details. Then you have a control over time. So how you're going to check it, how you're going to set all these formulas. So this is nothing, just a T510S table. So in that table, it's like if you're calculating any time wage type, it's like so you have to maintain all those details. So how it's going to take it, how it will read all these sections. So all those detail we're going to understand with your regular session. And then here also you will see there is like Acha, these details are very important because all these things it just reads by the TMOD. TMOD PCR is one of the very important PCR when it comes to your all these detail when it comes to time. And so you will see that how much the employee like wage earner, how their salary are getting calculated. You're working in an organization, so for hourly wage earner there is a different calculation. For salaried employee there is a different calculation. So and for maybe the wage earner, there is a different calculation. So all these formula, you'll have to write it. So here you can see W is equal to 01, W is equal to 02, W is equal to 03. So here in 01 they have a different hourly wage calculation, they have a different bonus calculation, they have a different way of calculating overtime. Maybe hourly wage earner, you're not giving so much of overtime, but maybe the salaried employee, you are giving the overtime per rate as a 200. So like this, you will calculate all these detail and you will maintain all these formula into the system, how it will work.
So
Now
you
here
are
you can
saying,
see,
one second, can we go back? So you are saying this, can we go back to that slide? Yes. So you are saying that in payroll PCS schemas also, this T-mod function and rule also plays a very vital role. I mean, for
yeah,
the time wage type.
this is your tmod is basically it will read from the time and it will tell you
So
and the payroll also.
you are also going to cover this now, this part, of course.
Something which is relate, yeah, don't
Yeah,
worry.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Something which is
because
related with the which will affect that
payroll.
payroll will cover it.
Okay.
Then here you can see tmod, and then here you can see like how those calculations are happening, how those your detail it will come, how you will select the wage type, how you'll select the employee subgroup grouping, plant wise, person sub area wise, employee group, employee subgroup wise, or work schedule rule wise. How do you want those calculations to happen? So all these detail we're going to see with the regular session. Then here you can see time waste type selection. Like there is a function which is known as a demo. And in that demo, it is like you have a parameter one, parameter two, parameter three, and parameter four. How those T510S table, it has to be calculated, right? So all these conditions that we're going to see, whether it's a public holiday, not a public holiday, Saturday, Sunday, how it this has to be calculated, right? So all these details we're going to check. And here you can see all these section, like it is coming from your, whether it's a overtime, whether it's a regular hour. So here you can see this is a regular hour and this is basically it's an overtime and how it is going to a different table and how the system will read. So this is what basically you have to understand in your PCR and schema, how to read all these details. Then there is a partial period factor. Partial period factor we just talked about. Like for example, if an employee is getting for 30 days, he's getting a 30,000 as a salary. Now employee has been absent for 7 days. So 7 days, it is also he will not have so much of quota, right? So obviously there will be some salary deduction.
Mhm.
So how his salary deduction will happen? So this is what it will count into your PCR and schema. And with this PCR and schema, you will find your all these detail and your all these section. It will come and right. So like this, you will see your whole this area. Like for example, you can see here M020. It is like 3,000 which is coming. Now here you can see there is after factoring. It is showing as a 1,500. This is for in subgrouping to 0 to it is showing as a 3,500, but here after some reduction it is showing as a 1,750. So these are the partial period factor. Factoring we're going to see with the regular session. This is also a very important PCR and you will also going to work with majorly with your this PCR. So you can see how your XPPF, XPP0, XPP1, how your all these it will be calculated whether employee has been active or not, whether it's an unpaid absence or not, whether how is the basic changes it will work, employee subgrouping, when he has joined, when if he has left the company. So all those formula you will have to understand. And here you can see there is another PCR which is coming XPP1. And in this XPP1, there is a partial period factoring which is getting calculated.
Okay.
You have some question?
No, no, no. I said okay. My voice
Acha,
is
okay.
making some disturbance. Okay, yeah.
Okay, so like this, you will see all these PPF, and when you're doing the factoring, it is always factoring starts with a. Acha, whenever you have a wage type, and
Mm.
in that wage type there is a forward slash, so that means it's a technical wage type. So those
Technical wage
technical
type.
wage type, it is generated by the system automatically. But how does it happen automatically? It happens through the PCR. In PCR, whenever you have maintained those technical wage type, and when you run this, so system automatically runs in the background and generate those technical wage type. Okay. Now here
Okay.
you can see there are so many things. Like here you can see TSSOLL, like how many planned working hour and employee has worked. TSAU, like unpaid absences, you have to minus it. Then KGE and AU like multiply by the factor. So there's a constant table in which you have to maintain all these factors. Then we can say divide by TSDIV, so working time, and then what is the actual result coming. So all these formula, you'll have to maintain in a system and you will have to understand. So this is what your all PCR and schema it is all about. Like here you can see all these waste type. So there is a processing class,
Hmm.
PRCL, and each PRCL there is a specification. So those, especially when you talk about the reduction factor, so you'll have to show that as a reduction. If you make it as a reduction with one, it will reduce a particular waste type. But if you make it as a zero, so that particular waste type, there'll be no deduction. So
I
like
need
this,
to,
you will see.
yes, I also need to understand this processing class also here, the evaluation
All
class, the
right.
processing. Yeah.
So with this, we have finished off with the demos trained,